Hello everyone and welcome to Total Quilter Monthly for October 2018. My name is Mark Garetz and I'm a National Floriani educator, and this month we're going to be talking all about holes. Now we use holes all the time when we want to stitch around but not through another object. Oftentimes we tell you how to make the holes, because we do this a lot when we make quilt blocks, but we don't really explain how the holes work in detail. So this month we're going to go down the rabbit hole. And you can see in this quilt block that I've put together here, I've used pumpkins because it's October. You can see we have a background pattern that is stitched onto the block, but not through the pumpkin designs. And that's the main thing that we do with holes. But we're going to talk all about how to use them and how to make them in this month's webinar. So what is a hole? A hole is anytime we have a shape that is closed. So for example, this square shape here is a closed shape, and inside it we have another closed shape that becomes the hole. So you can see in this example we've got this object here, this rectangle, this square with a hole in it. Now there's many different ways to create this hole inside, and so that's what we're going to cover in this video. So this is what we're talking about. You can also think of something like the letter O. That's a shape with a hole punched out of the center of it. So think of it like a cookie cutter. We're going to take shapes and punch out the center or some part of a shape within a shape. So I'm going to undo what I did here. So I'm going to go back a few steps to get rid of that inner shape. And we're going to show you the various ways that you can create a hole. Now, I've got this rectangle selected. If I go over to my left toolbar and click Shape, and I now have a shaping cursor, you'll notice that in the corners here I've got little blue dots. So these are the nodes or points that create this outside shape, and you can tell that it's a closed shape. And for purposes of being able to see this on the screen easily at home, I've changed my pen width of this rectangle to 1 millimeter, but you can leave it whatever millimeter you want. It normally comes up to 0, which is a hairline, but that's a little hard to see on the video, so I've changed it to 1. But it really does not matter what the width is. Now in this mode, in shape mode, with the shape tool selected, I can create a hole in the center of this shape by literally drawing that hole using my cursor. So the way I'm going to do that is I need to start the hole. The way I do that is I come to any point. So I'm going to use this point up here in the upper left, right click on it, and you'll find down here there is an item called Add Hole. So it doesn't matter which point you click on. Just to get to this menu, we need to click on a point to get Add Hole to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Hole. Now you'll see that my cursor has changed to a crosshairs, and I can start clicking or clicking and dragging or whatever I want to do to create a shape inside here to create a hole. So let's just make a rectangle, and I've got Snap to Grid turned on, so it's going to make a good rectangle no matter what I do. And I'm going to try and make it kind of symmetrical here. So I'm going to come here. That looks pretty good. I didn't get it exactly square, but I want to make sure that I close this shape of the hole. If I don't close it, it won't know what to do with the hole. So I can get on this shape here and try and get right back on this node. With Snap to Grid turned on, that's easy, but you should get in the habit of closing the shape by coming over here to the Close Shape icon and clicking it, and that will automatically create the closed shape. Now in this case we don't have our hole created yet. I need to right click one more time, and now I've created the hole in the center. To show you that it really is a hole, there's two different ways we can look at this. Over here in our artwork, we see that this object here is the outline shape with a hole in it as a single object. And if I fill that object and click apply, then you can see that it is filled in. Now, one of the things that happens in Total Quilter or my decorative quilter is you get this extra artwork shape here, which we could go ahead and delete, but I'm not going to actually do that because I really don't care. So this is the basics of how to create a hole. Now I'm still in shape mode, so I can do a lot of different things with this hole. I could click and drag one of these points, and you see how it's snapping to the grid lines. You can't see them underneath, but they're there. So I could make that into kind of a kite shape there by moving the points around. So I have control over what the shape of this hole is. In fact, I can right click on a point and change my line type from a straight line to, say, a smooth line, and that will kind of round out that point there. And I could select that point, and I could click on the handles to move that curve around and just create any kind of shape I want in the center there. So that's one way to create a hole within another shape. So we're kind of creating a closed shape within a closed shape to create the hole. There's actually kind of an easier way to do it, and we've done this in a lot of our videos before, but we really haven't explained what's going on, which is why I want to cover it in this video. So I'm just going to undo a bunch of times to get back to where we just had our outline square. So now we have our outline here. The other way to create a shape within a shape, to create a hole within a shape, is to actually use a different shape. So I could use another rectangle, but I'm not limited to that. I could choose, say, an ellipse, and I could drag an ellipse here, and because I got snap to grid turned on, it's turning it into an actual circle. And you can see over here, if I look at the top level of my items, because one is overlaid on the other, it looks like there's a hole in here, but there's really not a hole cut in this rectangle in the shape of the circle. And I can tell that because my two pieces of artwork are distinct. To prove that, I'm going to select just the outside rectangle. I'll go ahead and fill it and click apply, and you can see that there's no hole cut in it. So I'm going to unfill it and click apply. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because this is the super easy way to create an object with a hole in it. If I select both of them, and I can hold down Control right now and select this one, and that would give me both of them. I could also do it by just selecting the top level, which would select both of them. And then I come up here to my combine icon. I can create a combine object, and when the two objects are overlapped and one is completely inside the other, what combine does is it punches a hole in the bigger object in the shape of the smaller object. So it creates that hole for us, and you'll see how useful this is in a minute. So I just want to show you, though, that if I only have one object selected, you'll notice that my combine icon is not lit up, because I cannot combine only one thing. I need to select at least two things in order to combine them. And the other thing about combine is the two things that I select, they have to be the same object type. So for cutting holes, we're in general going to be working with artwork in Total Quilter. So we're going to select both pieces of artwork, and then we're going to click our combine icon, and you'll notice when I do that, now I've got a single piece of artwork here without hole cut in it. And I'll select it, and I'll fill it, and click apply, and now you can see that I've got just a single object with a hole cut in it. Now, why is that useful? Because if I turn off this fill and I click apply, I could fill this with one of my decorative fills. So for example, I could click my auto stipple, and what would happen is it would stipple around but not in the hole. So if I had an object in here, like I had a picture or I had another embroidery design, and I wanted this stipple to go around it in the shape of a hole, this is exactly how I would do it. Now I'm not limited to the stippling. I could choose a advanced stippling fill, so I could choose, say, this one, stipple number 11, and I've got that design filled around the outside, and you see how it goes inside my outer object but didn't go inside the hole. And I can do that with just about anything, and you'll notice that now my echo quilting icon is also lit up, so I can echo quilt around that hole, and you can see that it's made a circle. So while we're on the subject of echo quilting only works when you have a single hole inside of another object. So echo quilting is going to echo in the shape of the hole all the way out to the edge of the other object. So it's actually a single object, but you get the point that that's how echo quilting works. So if you don't have that condition, you don't have a object with a hole in it selected, your echo quilting icon is not going to light up. So now you get the basic idea of how holes work. And I'm going to delete this stitch object that we created here, the echo quilting. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to click the delete key on my keyboard to get rid of it. And I've still got my artwork here, and again, that's one of the properties of Total Quilter and my decorative quilter, that when you create stitches from artwork, most of the time it leaves that artwork behind. So let's just talk about what we've got here. We have a combined object. So we've taken our outside square and our inside circle and combined them into a single object. And again, when we do that combining with a object that is smaller than the other one, and they are overlaid, so one is completely inside the other, and we combine them, it will create a hole inside the outer object. To undo that, there's another command that's called break apart. So this breaks apart a path, which is what we've got here, that is combined, or what would also be known as a compound path. So this combined path, we can undo it by clicking break apart here. And now if we look over here in our sequence view, we've got our two pieces of artwork again. I lost my 1mm line width along the way somehow, but we'll go back to that. Okay, so now that I have them broken apart, I'm going to actually select the circle and I'm going to delete it. And that leaves me with just my square that we started with. Let me go ahead and change the pen width back to 1mm. Click apply so you can see it a little bit better. Now, how is this actually useful in quilting and in Total Quilter and creating a block? Well, usually what we want to do is we want to echo or stipple or decorative stitch around another object. In this lesson so far, what we've done is use a circle or created strange object shapes, squares, and weird kites and things in the center, but you're probably not going to do any of those in an actual quilt. What you're more likely going to do is take another embroidery design, put it inside your block, and this outside square is going to represent our block, and then you're going to want to stipple around it or echo around it or decorative stitch around it. And we need to create an outline around that embroidery object. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but before I do that, I want to show you a group of objects that we pre-created for you, and they're called embellishments. And they're located right here under the embellishments icon. And when you look at them here in the preview, you see them as like a little stitch object, and they are actually run stitch objects. So let's grab one of these stars here. Let's grab this star, and it comes into the center, but if we look close, we'll see over here in our sequence view that this is actually two separate objects. We have the stitches of the star, so if I expand that, you'll see that that's a run stitch, and this outline is artwork. So if you use one of these built-in objects, one of the embellishments, we've already gone ahead and created the outline for you. So in order to use this, say we want to create a decorative fill around it, we would select the outline, hold down Control and select the big outline, and we would click our combine icon, and now we have a single object that is that outline with the hole cut out it in the shape of a star. So I can select it and I can fill it with something. Let's go ahead and pick a design to fill it with. Let's just go ahead and fill it with more stars, and you'll see how that works. So we have filled that with that advanced motif, that advanced applique, not applique, that advanced, what's the word I'm looking for? Stippling, advanced stippling around it, and it has not gone into the center. All right, so that is one way you could do it. I'm going to show you another. I'm going to back up. Don't you just love undo? I'm going to back up to where we didn't have anything combined. So I've got this separate piece of artwork and I've got this design. But let's say I wanted to do more than one of these in this block. Can I do that? The answer is yes, I can. So I'm going to take this object and I'm going to select both of them by holding down Control and selecting the outline and the stitches. And I'm going to copy and paste that. And I'm going to move it over into the corner here. Whoops, I didn't grab it. Let me grab it here in the sequence view. So I clicked and dragged too soon. You want to wait till you see that hand. There we go. And now I could move that up here into the corner, and I could copy and paste it again. In fact, I don't even have to copy it. I can paste it again, and I'll move this one up into this corner. And I could use my alignment tools to get them aligned and things, but we're just going to do this for this particular demonstration. I will go ahead and just do this. I would probably put two more down here, but I just want to show you the idea. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select my big outline, my block outline, and I'm going to hold down Control and select all of the other artwork pieces. So I've got all of the artwork pieces selected, and if I click Combine, now I will have an object. We look at it here, an object of artwork that looks like the outside, and it's got my stars cut out of the center. So I've cut more than one hole out. So if I select that and I just fill it with a color here to show you what's going on, you can see that I have cut multiple holes in all at the same time. So you're not limited to just one hole inside an object. You can do multiple holes. All right, so I'm going to undo all of that. I'm going to undo all the way back to where I just had a single set of objects here. And I'll actually undo one more to where we didn't have that center object at all, because I want to show you how we would use an actual embroidery object that does not have an outline. And you can do this with any of the built-in embroidery designs, which is what I'm going to do. Or you can actually bring in a design from the real world outside. So I'm going to bring in a built-in design, and I'm going to use one of the built-in decors. And in my original opening slide there, I showed you some pumpkins because this is October. So I got this pumpkin right here. It's a fairly tiny pumpkin, but since this program allows me to resize things just about anywhere, I'm going to resize it fairly big in the center here. It'll recalculate the stitches for me, so that'll stitch out well. I'll turn on 3D so you can see the stitches. So now I've got my pumpkin. If I select all the parts of my pumpkin, so I shift click on the bottom So now I've got all parts of my pumpkin selected. I can create an outline around it. The way I do that is I come up here to my Create Outlines tool. So I'm going to click it, and right now all I want is a single outline. So I'm going to make sure I set my ripples to 1. I want that outline to be closed, so I want to be in cascade mode. This join, repeats, and remove selection, you want to leave them unchecked. And here I've got my spacing. So this is going to space my initial outline, this outline, 1/10 of an inch away from the outside of the pumpkin. If I want 1/10 of an inch, that's okay. I'm going to actually make it a little bit closer. I'm going to put 0.05, and I'm going to click OK. And that will have created an outline around it. So you can see here in my sequence view, I've got now an artwork outline around that pumpkin. So if I click that and I click my original square, I can combine those two, and now I've got a square with a cutout in it in the shape of my embroidery design. So again, if I fill that and click apply, you'll see that it's filled around the shape of the pumpkin. And if I uncheck that and click apply, I could fill it with a shape. So I could come back to advanced stippling here, choose a shape. So I'll just go ahead and choose this one, and you could see that it stipples around the outside of it and doesn't go through my embroidery design. So that's what you would do from a practical perspective with creating a hole. So I'm going to actually now delete all of the stitches that we just created. So I'm going to come here. Actually, I'll do that by doing undo, because I want to make my shape uncombined again. So now I'm going to delete all of these shapes. So I'm going to click on the first one and hold down shift and click on the bottom one, press the delete key on my keyboard. So I'm back to my original artwork. Because the last thing I want to show you with holes and the combine tool is what actually happens if the shapes are not totally inside one another. So for example, if I created a ellipse and I created it inside, and I could position it anywhere I want, and it's important to get it positioned before you combine them. So if I were to select those two and click combine, you see I've got that shape within a shape. So I'm going to undo that, but what if this shape was not totally inside? What if it was hanging out like this? All right, what happens now if I combine those two objects? Well, what I'm going to get is a hole here, but part of the object coming out here. The easiest way to show you that is go ahead and combine them. So if I combine them and then I fill them and click apply, you'll see that now I have this shape where I've got a fill here, and a hole here. So you can actually go ahead and fill that with a pattern. I'll turn off the solid fill, uncheck fill, and click apply. And if I fill that with a pattern, let's go ahead and fill it with some more circles. Okay, actually that's not a circle, but it looked like it, so it's kind of a star. So I've gone ahead and filled it, and you can see that it fills in here, but it also fills in here. So you can create some interesting effects like this. This would kind of mess up our quilt block, but if we wanted to do it inside the quilt block with different shapes, you could. So for example, I'm going to just select this oval here, and I've done undo a bunch of times. I'm going to copy and paste that oval, and then I'm going to rotate that oval 90 degrees. And now I'm going to select both ovals. So I'm going to shift click and control click. So I'm going to click on both of them to get them selected. And then I'm going to combine them, and I'll fill it so you could see what happened to it. So now I've got a shape that is kind of strange, but I might want to create that shape. Now, I could go ahead and fill that with a pattern, but I could also make it, say, a run stitch to create, if I turn off the fill here, so let me just hide my artwork. Actually, let me just delete it. I don't need it anymore. You'll see I've created kind of a spiral graph kind of shape. So I could do all kinds of fun things with combine, but most of the time you're going to use it to create a hole. Now, if I turn this back into artwork, so I do that by clicking this artwork button here. So, I didn't do it right. Okay, artwork. So now that's artwork, and it's a single piece of artwork. So if I select everything by control clicking my top one, so now I've got everything selected, I can combine it again to create a further compound shape that has a hole in it. So if I fill this one, let me just grab it here. If I fill it, you'll see what it looks like. So now I've got a lot of different things that I can do with holes. So that is the basics of how to create holes with Total Quilter and My Decorative Quilter. This will work with both of them. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and I want to invite you to come back next month for our next installment of Total Quilter Monthly.